If you're dreaming of moving to Australia, but you're stuck wondering, can I actually afford it? Then this video is your reality check. I'm going to hold your hand and walk you through it bit by bit, break every single cost down to see if this is doable. And I'm not going to give you a sugar-coated version. Most of us aren't millionaires. I wish I was. Just the real numbers. Spoilies, you don't have to be rich. When I moved here, I was a struggling actor, £0 in my savings. So we're going to look at what it costs, where people go wrong, and how you can budget to actually move to Australia and make this a reality. Let's get into it. Hey mate, welcome back. I'm Sam, a British expat documenting my journey of leaving the UK and starting afresh in Australia to create a better life. Now, number one is visa costs. This is the non-negotiable start line. The truth is, without your visa, you cannot do anything else in Australia. Australian Government Department of Home Affairs website says do not arrange any travel until you have it in writing from them that you are legally allowed to enter the country. And to me, this insinuates that you shouldn't be booking any accommodation or buying anything on Amazon Australia or whatever until you have your visa. It's been legally granted in writing. Sometimes the visa process is super smooth. You might only have a couple of pages to fill out and then it gets granted within a few weeks. Other visas, it might be mounds and mounds of paperwork like mine was, and it could take you months and months and months, sometimes even years to get approved. So do it today if you can afford it. If you have the time, do your visa literally right now. Just to put things into perspective, 90% of working holiday visas, which might be the visa you're considering, they can on average take 61 days to get approved. So I would highly recommend you go and use the website immi.homeaffairs.gov.au. That has all of the different kinds of visas. Have a little browse, do a bit of window shopping on the visas, find the best one for you, because while your mate is telling you to get a working holiday visa, for some reason you might be more suited to a different one. So everyone's visa is different. And that's why I can't actually give you a straight answer with how much your visa is going to cost. So visa fees vary massively. It could be anywhere from £300-ish for a working holiday visa all the way to 4,000 plus for other things like a partner visa. Plus you need to factor extras in. You might need police checks and medical checks, possibly even translators. These all tally up. Once you've nailed this, it's smooth sailing. This is the main barrier to entry, quite literally, to Australia. As soon as you've got your visa, you've paid for it, it's been granted legally in writing, you are flying. Honestly, you are already doing more than 99% of people ever do. So keep going, don't give up. Even though there's paperwork, keep persevering through it. Number two is flights and travel. I've said this before and I'll say this again, a return flight is almost always better than one way. So always go return if you've got the money in the bank. You might see the appeal of saving like £300 by getting a one-way today, but then future you in a year's time, when you have to buy that one way for another £800, is gonna go, oh, I wish I bought a return. I'd be saving so much money right now. Now, obviously flight costs are dependent on an array of things, the time of year, what airline you're flying with, and what country you're flying from, and what city you're flying to in Australia. If you're like me, I like to fly London Heathrow to Brisbane Airport. This costs me anywhere from £750 to £1,500 for a return flight. A few tips: use incognito mode and use two websites, Google Flights and Skyscanner. Also, to save a bit of money, avoid peak seasons like December, for example. Now, pro tip here, this isn't financial advice, but I know what some people do is that they take a rewards credit card out if your credit score and income allows you to. And by having a rewards credit card, there's often quite a few upfront bonuses that you get if you spend a certain amount. They might give you thousands and thousands of airline points that can then be used on these flights and save you a lot of money. So it might be worth looking into that. Also, if you're enjoying this video, would you mind just hitting the like button for me? It really helps to support my channel and keep making better videos about Australia. Cheers. Number three is your initial accommodation. Now, even if you are set on the city and you want a proper long-term apartment, unless you've got friends and family you can stay with, you will probably need to book some sort of temporary accommodation. If you do have a mate that you can sleep on their couch, great, because then this is free. The cheaper option would be a hostel, but that's not for everyone. So if you do look at an Airbnb, you're looking at around £200 to £400 a week. But again, completely dependent on the city and the season. Also, I would urge you to avoid committing to long-term leases until you get here. Always view the property in person, because you don't know what you're signing up to. Even if they can do some sort of video call viewing, it's still better to go in person. I made the mistake of doing a video viewing for my first ever room in an apartment in East London, and it was horrible. So yeah, don't make my mistake. It took my wife and I about a full month of doing viewings to find a long-term apartment in Brisbane. The fourth cost you need to factor in is the bond and rent that you have to pay up front if you take out a long-term lease. So in Queensland, at least, it's not uncommon to pay about 4 weeks of rent up front, and then also your bond. And for you Brits, that means your security deposit. Your bond is usually about 4 weeks of your rent as well. So that's quite a big cost. But in Brisbane, for a 2-bedroom apartment, say you've got a partner or friend that you're sharing with, I would say on average in Brisbane at least, you can expect the rent to be about £1,300 to £1,500 a month. Weird thing though in Australia is that they put the rental prices in weekly, which I found really confusing because in the UK we do monthly. Obviously, if you share a 2-bed apartment with your mate or partner, this £1,300 of rent is only going to be £650 of rent. Number 5 is the everyday essentials that we often forget about. Now, in this section, I'm also including your utility bills, and you don't have to pay rates, which for you Brits means council tax. Now, these add up fast, so make sure you have at least a month's worth in money that can pay for your groceries, your SIM card, your phone plan, public transport, toiletries, sunscreen, and kitchen bits and bobs, you know, like the cumin and the paprika, and you know, when you're like making a dish and you're like, oh, I don't have any chopped tomatoes, and then the main ones, gas, electric, and internet. Now, hearing that huge list probably sounds very overwhelming and very expensive, but I actually, with all of those things included, I only spend £293 a month. Now, I know it helps that my wife and I, we split things like our groceries, for example, but also we go to budget supermarkets like Aldi. So it is completely doable to live off of £300 a month for your utility bills and your everyday essentials. You need to shop around. Someone will tell you, no, go with this energy provider, go with this internet provider. But go onto utility bill comparison websites. Go onto those and shop around, find the best deal. Don't take things at face value, because that's how you lose so much more money. I know it feels like a hit to be spending all this money, but once you're set up in Australia, it will feel so much more worth it. And in return, you get super clean cities, beaches, lovely animals, lovely people. List goes on and on. This isn't a rave about Australia video. Just a quick one. I was looking at my analytics today and I noticed that over 98% of you who regularly watch my content aren't yet subscribed. So if you are enjoying this video and it's helpful, then consider hitting the subscribe button. It really helps me continue making content like this. Cheers. Number 6 is car costs. If you don't drive, that's fine. Most cities, even Brisbane, you can get around on the really cheap buses. There's a few trains. There's Lime scooters if that's your vibe. But if you're in more regional areas, even places like the Gold Coast, where public transport isn't as advanced as somewhere like Melbourne, for example, you're gonna need a car. I'm not a car guy, but used cars here can go anywhere from £2,500 all the way to £10,000 depending on what you're getting. We got a 2007 Toyota Yaris sedan. Absolutely lovely car, not very glamorous, but does the job. And we paid about £5,000 for that. Also, you need to factor in your registration, your fuel, and your insurance. Good news though, compared to the UK, in my experience, registration is cheaper and fuel is way cheaper. Oh my gosh, filling up a tank in our car costs almost half the price that it would in the UK, which just absolutely blows my mind. And if you have a clean license, no accidents in the last 5 years, and you're over 25 years old, you're gonna get a much cheaper deal on your insurance from insurance providers. Now, if you're city-based like Melbourne and Sydney, you can omit this whole section. You've just saved yourself 5, 7, 10,000 K, congratulations. But if you're more, even Brisbane, I would recommend considering a car. While the buses in Brisbane are consistent, it's not gonna help you on days like Christmas morning where everything's shut and you really want to get in your car. I don't know why you're getting in your car on Christmas morning. Now, if you're serious about moving to Australia, you will absolutely love my free weekly newsletter. It's only a 3-minute read. You'll get honest insights about what it's like living in Australia, tips from an expat like me to make your life better, and actionable advice on how you can escape your country and start afresh in a better place like Australia. If that sounds good to you, you can subscribe with one click in the description below. Number 7 is the work timeline. Now, there is an income gap that people forget when you move countries. You are just dreaming about the beaches and the new apartment and the shopping at an Aussie supermarket, and you go, yeah, I've got all the money, I'll be fine. And then 1 month passes in Australia and your bank account is looking very skinny and you're like, oh, I really need some money and I don't have a job yet. Now look, you likely won't earn money right away when you get here. If you want to get a 9-to-5 job, you're going to have to do some job hunting and send out your CV. Even if you're someone who's been hired by an Aussie company to move over here, you are still going to have a couple of weeks of downtime where you're setting up and not earning money. So a lot of people, especially Brits, underestimate how slow this transition can be. But you're probably thinking, Sam, what's the solution? Well, the solution is number 8, and that is an emergency fund. My friends, this is not optional. I would highly recommend at least £6,000 in your emergency fund. This is, like a little bit less than 6 months of rent and bills and a few other bits. So the absolute bare minimum I would recommend is £2,000. This is aside from the money that you're going to spend on your visa, on your car, on your rent and bond, all of that stuff. You might think, I'm young, whatever, I'll just move. But if you don't have this and things don't go to plan when you get there, you don't want to have to leave and go back to your home country with your head held in shame because you couldn't make it work. You want to be there for as long as possible. So yeah, trust me on this one. Number 9 is the total cost breakdown. We've gone through all the main costs. Let's break it down bit by bit now, what it's all going to cost you in total. And as you can see, we've got the lowest budget possible option and also a safety net version. So firstly, for your visa, to make things easier, let's just say you're going for the working holiday visa, which is what a lot of people do. Flights are anywhere from £700 to £1,500. They can obviously be a bit more expensive than this. Initial accommodation could be anywhere from £800 to £1,600. Remember though, if you've got friends and family here, you can completely delete this section and save yourself all that money. Your bond and rent up front, living essentials and utility bills for your first month, and emergency fund. So we're totaling in that amount for each one. Pick which one you want. If I could recommend you set up some sort of secondary income and go for the safety net version while working whatever job you're working right now without burning yourself out, of course, I'd highly recommend that, but totally up to you at the end of the day. So number 10, what you can do now. Number 1 is to go onto the government website right now and apply for your visa if you have the money. Find which visa is right for you. Number 2 is start budgeting without taking anything out yet until your visa has been granted. Start researching bank accounts and mobile plans. I would highly recommend Aussie Broadband. They do some really good cheap mobile plans. Save this video, download it if you've got YouTube Premium, and reverse engineer your timeline. If you have the time at home, I would highly recommend moving back in with your parents or relatives if you can. I know it's a bit lame, but it could save you a huge amount of money. Set up some sort of secondary source of income. Maybe you can create some digital products or do some freelancing like I did. And if moving to Australia is further in the pipeline for you, maybe you could even find a better job that can pay you for that year or two until you move. The next thing I would highly recommend you do is set up an internationally fee-free spending debit card. If you're in the UK, something like Chase is brilliant because it means that when you visit Australia or when you go to live in Australia and say it takes you some time to open up an Australian bank account, well, not to worry because you've got your fee-free spending card. And the last thing is follow creators like me who actually live this life. This will actually help you, and I'm not just encouraging you to subscribe to my channel, but also go watch other YouTubers who have moved to Australia, but don't just go follow the aesthetic travel influencers where everything's picture perfect. Go follow the people online on blogs, on Instagram, on YouTube, wherever, because getting immersed in the world before you're here is going to help you so much more than you know. So you've got the numbers, but knowing how you behave once you've landed, well, that is a whole nother ballpark. So I made this video here about the 10 secret rules that tourists and expats keep breaking that Australians really don't like you doing. So go watch that so you can avoid the mistakes that I made. Consider hitting that subscribe button as you've made it that far. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.